So last week we started with shifting our weight back, lifting our spine to free up our hip, and that in turn will free up our leg. We also talked about how we use our knees. That is, as we walk, we bend our knees, we go backwards, but if the woman is continuing into a backward step or a continuous movement, her knee is going to stay bent or even more bent than if she was coming up to neutral. Okay? So if you watch the top of my head, if I'm going backwards for multiple steps, the lobe of my head looks like this. Whereas if I'm going back to neutral after a single step, and you can see on the last one, I went like this, as opposed to a multiple step where it was like that. I asked for the man, if she has to be smooth, what does that mean for your dance? And the answer is, well, you want to be smooth as well. Okay? And if she's smooth, and gentlemen, if you're doing this, she's going to be able to feel that. And she's going to, one thing, it's not going to be comfortable if you're dancing close embrace, but it also interferes with the communication you're going to give her. The communication being, what's the next step? Okay, so the quieter both the man and the woman is in how they walk, keeping their knees soft so they can phrase a combination of steps, then the easier it is to communicate what the next invitation is. So that brings up another question. And that is, when does she know whether her leg is continuing going backwards or whether she knows she's going to come to neutral? Or more specifically, when does she know, or when should she start looking for it? We've talked about how the closing of the steps, or the closing of the leg, I should say, is the beginning of the next step. So what's the end of the current step? Okay, now, as you recall from our video a few weeks ago, we have 4 different parts of the step: extension, weight transfer, the closing of the step, and a pivot. So of those 4, what do you think would be considered the end of the current step? So I'll let you think about that. Most people, when I ask them this question, will say, well, it's when your legs are together. That's the end of the step. That would be true if you were walking down the street. But we're talking about our tango walk. So things are a little bit different. So once we add in the music, and we have to be on the beat, what part of her body needs to be on the beat, or what position should we be in on the beat? Okay, so again, we have 4 parts of the step. We got your extension, your weight transfer, your closing, and your pivot. Of those 4, when do you need to be on the beat? And that would mark the end of the step. Let me see if I can give you a hint. Did you figure it out? The answer might surprise you. If the closing of the step, that is when you draw the leg back, is the beginning of the next step, the end of the step is the extension. So let's see how this works. If I have to be on the beat, 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 okay? This is the end of my step. I now need to find out where this leg goes. So this is the beginning of the next step. Beat and beat, 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 and beat, beat, beat. Can you see now how the extension is the ends of that step and the closing is the beginning of the next step? So now, think about the implications of what that means. If her extension needs to be on the beat and that's the end of the step, when does the man need to start his lead or his invitation? Obviously, after she has her foot extended. So at that point, when she's in this position here, whoops, she needs to start expecting that lead, and he, by this point, needs to begin his lead for the next step. So understanding this timing is very useful, not just so that you can dance on the beat and musically, but also understanding the dynamics of the invitation, the response. Understanding when that occurs so that you can have a comfortable dance, as opposed to something that runs a lead right into the timing that's supposed to be reserved for the movement. So that's it for today's video. I hope I've given you a lot to think about, especially about the timing. And the main thing I want you to get out of it is understanding when the step ends, which is at the woman's extension when she hits that foot, and understand with that what that means regarding when you want to and when you need to start the invitation for the next step, and also for the ladies when you need to start listening for that next step. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.